Hi, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Young Scholars webinar, Best Educational Apps for Middle School Students by Subject. We're so excited to have you here with us today. While we give a few more attendees a moment to connect, I'd love to introduce myself and share a few quick announcements before we officially get started. My name is Kyla Evans, and I'm the Marketing Optimization Coordinator here at Young Scholars and NSHSS. And it's a true pleasure to help kick things off with you today and welcome you. Now, before we start today's session, before we dive in, I have a few quick housekeeping reminders. This webinar is being recorded, and everyone who registered will receive a link to the recording by email afterwards. So if you miss anything or want to revisit the session, you'll have that opportunity. That said, we encourage you to stay with us live because this is your chance to ask questions directly to our host. At the end of the webinar, we'll also share a link in the chat to today's slide deck, so be sure to stick around for that. Since this is a Zoom webinar, your cameras and microphones are off by default, but you can participate at any time using the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to type in your questions throughout the event. And towards the end, we'll have a live Q&A session. And now, I'm thrilled to introduce your host for today's session, Helena Coloma. Born and raised in California, Helena began her undergraduate studies at the University of California, Berkeley. She moved to Boston, where she currently resides, to complete her undergrad at Harvard University. She recently graduated cum laude from Harvard and is on the pre-dental track. Helena is the NSHSS Collegiate Council Executive Board co-vice president of member engagement. She also served as a Be More Fun mentor and is a two-time NSHSS scholarship winner, including the STEM Innovation and Artificial Intelligence $1,000 scholarship and the Collegiate Council Leadership $1,500 scholarship. Helena is an associate director of Med News Week, which is affiliated with the NSHSS Be More Fund. And as a part of Med News Week, she has hosted and moderated several keynote conferences and medical spotlight shows featuring global leaders in medicine. She has published more than 20 abstracts and articles highlighting Med News Week's impact for a global audience. Moreover, Helena has more than 5 years of experience working in the dental field, a past internship with NASA, and is a former Miss Teen California and Miss Michigan. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Helena.
Thank you, Kyla, for that really kind introduction. And hi, everyone. I'm Helena. Thank you so much for being here today. It feels like nowadays that everyone, including students, is on their devices. And the reality is that they are. Technology, it's everywhere. But the real question isn't how much they're using it, it's how they're using it. And that same device that distracts them can actually become one of the most powerful learning tools that they have. In middle school, students are at a really important stage. They're building habits and independence. So today, what I want to show you is how we can use these apps to support learning, organization, and confidence. So for today's agenda, we'll be discussing why these apps matter, the top apps by subject, organization, and that are AI powered, how to use them effectively and responsibly, and also conclude with some key takeaways followed by a Q&A. A lot of students struggle in school, not because they're not capable, they struggle because they may not know how to study, don't have structure, or they just lose that confidence early on. So this is where the right tools can make a huge difference. The right apps can reinforce the lessons learned in the classroom, make learning feel more interactive and engaging, support different learning styles, especially if you're more of an auditory type of learner, or if you're more a visual learner or more hands-on. And overall, these apps encourage independent learning. Finding the best educational apps is important, but it's also important to find the best ones by subject. All right, let's start with science and STEM. Science is one of those subjects where students often struggle because it's abstract. When you're learning about atoms or ecosystems, it's hard to fully understand something that you can't really see. And so we'll be going over the science and STEM apps. These apps focus on visual learning. So some of the ones that I highlighted are Tinker, and that one is really great to introduce students to coding and problem solving. I also shared on here the official direct app from NASA, which not only provides real world science content, but also goes over their current missions and how they got there and makes things very interactive and accessible for students to understand. I also shared Brain Pop, which is one that I've used before, which has a lot of really great animated lessons and personalized quizzes on science subjects tailored for middle schoolers. And these apps really allow students to run simulations, watch processes happen in real time, and actually like really interact with the concepts rather than just reading about them. So it's a great way to apply those lessons learned in the classroom. So a scenario in which you may use these apps is instead of memorizing a diagram, for instance, you can use an app like Brain Pop to actually see how a chemical reaction unfolds and then really visualize these abstract concepts. And that's when the learning really sticks. Now, let's talk about math, which is a subject where I feel confidence matters the most. It's a subject where students may feel really lost because once you fall behind, it feels and becomes harder to catch up. What's great about these math apps that I shared here is that they break down problems step by step. So here's Khan Academy. This one I work with a lot. They have a lot of full lessons and practice. On top of offering for other subjects, I feel like Khan Academy is really strong in their math subjects in terms of showing you step by step how they work through the problems. And speaking of step by step, there's also photo math. That's a good one to take a photo of a problem that you're working on, and it'll discuss with you how they got to their solution and walk through you step by step. And the last one I shared on here for the math apps is Prodigy, which is a really cool way to get more math practice and help because it's game-based learning. So they have like all these really cool types of games for different math subjects, and they have it as well too for common math subjects that you would experience like in middle school. So I think that one's like a really cool and interactive one. And overall, all these math apps, they don't just say this is the answer. They show how they got there, how to approach it, and then also to how to solve similar problems. And I think that's like a really great strength that I found that Khan Academy has. So a situation in which you may use one of these apps is if you're stuck on a problem, instead of giving up, you can use Khan Academy and Photo Math to understand the problem, and map out your process for it. And you could even apply even more independent learning afterwards by using Prodigy to make the learning more fun with their games that they're offering. And now, as a student, you're not having to guess for the answer. You're able to apply that step-by-step thinking. And that's how that confidence is built in math. The next app or the next subject that we're going to be discussing is English language arts. Um, this is a subject where students can develop communication skills that really go far beyond the classroom. Reading, writing, vocabulary, these are skills that you're going to use for life. You're going to find yourself using it all the time, even outside of the classroom, as you move on forward, going from middle school to high school, college, and beyond. And the apps that I shared here, Grammarly is one that I use on a daily basis. It offers really great writing support. Not only will it offer corrections on grammar or suggestions. It'll also give some recommendations on like how to reword something depending on the type of tone that you want to use. If you want to use like a more personalized tone, if you're trying to tell a story, um, or if you need like a more scholarly, very objective type of tone, if you're presenting something of some kind. And something I think Grammarly offers, which is really cool, is they offer an extension that you can put on your computer. So as you're writing in, let's say Google Docs or on Microsoft Word, it'll make those suggestions to you in real time, which is really awesome. And there's also Newslia. That one is really cool because it offers current events at all reading levels. So you can kind of learn like what's going on in the world and also practice your reading. Um, and also to like expand and increase like your reading level through this, but in a really interesting way where you can learn about what's going on in the world. And they have it again at all reading levels. So you can start now while you're in middle school and then even progress later on as you're in high school and college to learn about all these current events. And it's something that I found really helpful when I took history classes, because I'm able to see what's going on in the world. And then I may find myself like I have to write a report on something and I have all these different options to then choose from rather than trying to figure out where can I go to get all my news. Epic, speaking of with reading, Epic offers a lot of really cool various books and audiobooks. And there's lot of places out there that do offer books and audiobooks, like even Amazon, but Epic is a really cool app because a lot of it is free and it'll also like personalize and tailor what it notices that you've been reading or listening to and offer you suggestions that are very similar to that. Overall, all these ELA apps really support students in improving grammar, expanding your vocabulary, and really strengthening your writing skills. So, for anyone that may feel insecure about their writing, these are really great apps for that. Say, for instance, you're working on a paper or report, you can get feedback in real time through Grammarly, especially if you decide to download that extension that's part of it. You can revise your work and improve your writing, in the comforts of your own home when you're working on it. And then it's like a really great way to get feedback in real time. These ELA apps, they not only build just writing skills, but also help you develop confidence in how you communicate and how you express yourself on paper. And I'll be going over next organization apps. And I think that actually this is the most important category because me and everyone, you may find yourselves at one point really struggling to like manage everything. Say for instance, if it's like not wanting to miss an assignment or forgetting a deadline or just like overall feeling overwhelmed with all these schedules and different tasks. So on here, I shared the first being Notion. Notion is great because it offers like a lot of free services with notes and planning and keeping track of things. So say for instance, you're learning the subject, it'll help you take notes. It's a great way to kind of accompany the notes that you may already take in class, but provide just even more detail or just help you kind of reorganize your notes that you already have. And also, I shared on here, speaking of Quizlet. So the notes that you kind of take in class, this is something I used to do. I would then turn them into flashcards and use them as practice. But Quizlet has expanded a lot more now, so it'll also um, give like suggestions on like what it also thinks you can do and help with your learning. Also offers like a lot of quizzes and like different ways to like learn the material, like filling in the blank or matching certain concepts with each other, especially if you're doing like a lot of like vocabulary learning. Um, and there's also my homework. That one's a really great one to track assignments. And on top of, assignments that you have, like if there's like a test coming up or if there's a report that you have to do, and if that report requires giving like a proposal on a certain topic, and then if you have to draft it, my homework is great to like help break all those big tasks into even smaller steps, smaller manageable steps. So overall, if you're feeling overwhelmed with, say, for instance, writing an essay, you can use Notion and My Homework together to help you structure the task into doing the research for the essay, outlining it, drafting it, and then later making any necessary edits. And I found like with, in terms of getting more accustomed in your organization, a really structured approach towards it helps reduce stress and increases a lot of self follow through. Building these really strong organization habits now will help lead to long lasting success in your independent learning. Now, let's talk about AI because this is something I know many people are curious about and it's getting incorporated into anything. So, but it's important, let's address here AI can be incredibly helpful, but it needs to be used correctly. These AI tools, they can explain really difficult concepts, they can help brainstorm ideas, and what's really nice is it can provide that really instantaneous support wherever you may be. If you may be studying and working on something at home, or if you're in the library. So these are the apps that I think are really great and that are AI powered. Speaking of Quizlet that we discussed earlier, there's also Quizlet AI, where when you're working on your flashcards or your practice, it helps provide really personalized studying. It can help you track what concepts you may need to like revisit or ones that um, it shows that you have like a really good like master knowledge on it. So maybe you won't show those ones as much. But Quizlet AI is really good in terms of giving you that like personalized study feel. Socratic is another really great homework helper. It's pretty various in the types of subjects it can address for Socratic, and that's something that's really great about it. Of course, but like navigating the best apps by subject is also great, but Socratic is great in terms of providing that overall homework help if you're stuck on a problem. It can help just guide you in the right direction. Of course, it won't just give you the answer, but help guide you towards it. And Duolingo, that's something that I've been using myself recently to learn and just brush up on my Spanish a little bit more. Duolingo, as maybe you've already heard, it's great for language learning, but they also have like an AI component that's part of it now to really provide that extra personalized help in that, which I think is really great. And something I want to again reiterate is that as much as these apps are there, AI should still support learning. It shouldn't just overall replace it. And say, for instance, instead of asking AI for an answer towards something, middle school students should feel encouraged to use, say, for instance, Quizlet AI and Socratic to ask it questions, get clarification on how they got there, and to overall deepen your overall understanding of the concept. And when really used correctly, AI can be a really helpful learning partner, but again, not a shortcut. Next, I want to discuss some things to keep in mind on how to use these apps effectively and responsibly. The first being is to really focus on the learning, not just getting through the assignment or the deadline that's coming up, for students to really work towards understanding the concepts. I know it's easy to then use these to just get the answer and call it done for the day, but it's really important to really understand how they got there and couple that with the lessons that you learned in the classroom as well too, so you're really understanding and comprehending of the topic itself because you may find yourself seeing this later on in life when you go through more of middle school or more through even like high school or college, um, or even like later on in a test. So it's really important to work towards understanding these concepts, not just trying to get through completing homework. And to reiterate something we discussed earlier, AI, again, it's a tool. It shouldn't be a shortcut. You want to use it to support your learning. Again, that all those lessons that you may learn in the classroom, and to support your studying and your engagement in your independent learning, but again, not to replace it entirely, because it's you that's learning the material, it's not the AI. And on top of with using all these apps, I also want to say like to use these apps really effectively and responsibly is to also balance your screen time with a lot of offline study. So you can use these apps to like help couple again, like what I mentioned, the lessons that you learned in the classroom, but also to practice what you learn independently, to not rely on these apps through every problem if you're really stuck on one, to use them, but to not rely on them all the time. That's a habit that could become really easy to fall into, but overall, at the end of the day, you want to be an independent learner. And speaking of with using these apps, be really intentional with the technology. I wrote on here to just start small and not everything at once. So what I mean by that is to just really find which app works best for you. Again, when I mentioned earlier, everyone has a different style of learning. For me, I'm more of like a visual learner and a hands-on learner. So things in like the ones that are more like game based. I find those really fun and really interactive, and it's something that I can look at and be more hands-on in because it's like more game based. But the way that I learn may not be the same way that everyone else learns. There may be someone that's more of an auditory learner, so you may find yourself using, say for instance, what I mentioned earlier, Epic. If really listening to things like, or even like Khan Academy that offers a lot of those the video lessons where they discuss with you how to go through things, that may work better for you. So again, just start small with these apps. You don't have to download all of them all at once. Just test to see which ones work for you, which ones don't. Um, and just be like really intentional with how you're using it. All right. And then to wrap things up, technology, we all know it's not going anywhere. It's just getting more incorporated into everything. But when used intentionally, it can help students become more independent, more confident, and more engaged. So, some key takeaways that I want to leave you here with is that the right apps can once again reinforce classroom learning. So, what your teacher and instructor discusses with you throughout the day, um, take notes on it, and then later when you get home, whether it be like after sports or your extracurriculars, to really practice and keep in mind your independent learning, um, and things to help you become like a really successful and efficient independent learner is to build those study habits. So again, like what I mentioned earlier, with building those really strong organization skills can help you just become like a more efficient and confident learner later on. Really stay organized, keeping track of deadlines and tasks so then you don't feel like overwhelmed with the amount of tasks that are at hand. Um, and overall, I just really encourage you to explore your interests with these apps, whether it be by subject. If there's a subject that you feel like is like your favorite, say for instance, if it's math, again, I mentioned there's a lot of game-based math learning that's out there. Yeah, just use it to explore your interests, to really stimulate your curiosity and your creativity. Also as well to with the English language arts apps. If you're like a really interested in storytelling, you can also use them too to work on that. Um, Work on like stories on the side during your free time. But yeah, overall, just really use these apps to stimulate your curiosity and your creativity. And yeah, those are just really the goals to not use all these apps to just get a grade on something, but use them to become a really effective and confident and an independent learner. And that's all that I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Helena. So we do have a couple of questions in our Q&A. So the first one is, how much screen time is too much when it comes to educational apps?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say the quantity of your screen time, it's less important than the actual like quality and the intention that you're putting behind using it. Like what I mentioned beginning, like we may find ourselves, especially like middle schoolers, you're on your devices. So you want to use that time instead of it being a distraction into using it towards learning. So like what I mentioned, like with balancing that screen time with a lot of offline and independent studying, um, really helps you build those like habits of being able to work towards problems also too on your own instead of relying on them. And speaking of with these apps is starting really small, like not all these apps all at once, just really finding what works best for you, because everyone has a different style of learning.
Thank you for that. So next question is, what's the best way to integrate these tools into homework routines?
Yeah, so using I those organization apps like I mentioned, like um, Notion that helps with not only taking notes, but also helping to build upon like your current notes that you may take in the classroom and giving you that platform to expand on these concepts, or even my homework. That one helps you track assignments and deadlines, and then helps you then visually map out breaking down all these smaller tasks. Um, and there's also Duolingo for language learning. That one's also a really fun one to do. Um, and say for instance, if you're stuck on a common example is like stuck on like a math homework problem. Um, there's photo math. You can like take a photo of it, see how they got there, and then how they got to their answer for it, and then using Khan Academy to then couple that and see how the problem is like worked through in real time, and then like actually see like the equations that are maybe needed for it, or the um certain approach how to use to that. Um, and I think things like Photomath or Khan Academy in this instance, when you're stuck on a math problem, is really great because it offers that really quick and immediate help if you're working on problems or studying for an exam, like at home. And of course, your teacher's not there. So those are really great. And then another one that I can think of, which is really great, is Quizlet. That one helps build that really consistent flashcard practice and helps you study and like memorize, but also understand concepts through repetition of seeing it over and over. But yeah, I think like these are ways that you can integrate these apps into different homework routines.
Absolutely. I agree. And then the last question that we have in the chat is, do these apps help prepare students for high school and beyond?
Yeah, I totally think so because like I mentioned earlier, I think middle school is like a really important stage in life for not only um building long-term successful habits, but also exploring like your interests and things that you're really curious about. Um like the English language apps, they help with developing your writing and making you confident in communicating your thoughts to others, like on paper, and also even expressing yourself and expressing your tone. Um, and you'll use like these like communication, writing, and even building your vocabulary skills later on in life, not just to writing a paper, but you might find yourself wanting to or making a presentation on something, or say for me, for my instance, like I'd been in college and I started working on like abstracts and like publications. So building all these habits in middle school will help set you up for long-term success. And on top of that, just being really intentional with the technology, especially when solving problems, it can help you become more independent and more engaged in your learning, and really overall helping to reduce all the stress that you may experience just with um, going through middle school and then like later to high school and beyond, handling not being afraid and having a good approach towards managing deadlines and breaking down what you need to do for bigger and more complex projects, which will eventually come up. It'll help just, reduce any kind of feelings of feeling overwhelmed as you just move on more in life from middle school to high school and to college and beyond as the academic environment just becomes more rigorous.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I think these apps will help students like in the transition into high school because a lot of what they're focusing on now will just be a different level in high school. So having these to ease the transition and make them confident in the subjects that they struggle with will really help make the difference whenever they get to that next stage. Thank you so much for sharing your insights on those questions.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So those are all the questions that we had. So I just want to say thank you so much to everyone for being here with us today. A big thanks to our Young Scholars members for participating and to the parents for supporting your students. Thank you again to our amazing host, Helena Coloma, for sharing your energy and insights on this subject. And we hope you found today's session helpful and inspiring as you take steps towards a successful high school journey. And don't forget the recording and slide deck will be shared via email so you can revisit any part of today's webinar. We're so glad that you are part of the Young Scholars community, and we'll hope to see you next time. And feel free to fill out the feedback form by scanning the QR code. We would love to hear your thoughts on the webinars and how we can make them better. Thank you guys so much for being here. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.